In every democracy, election night is treated as a big deal. The campaign's over, the voting is done, the polls are closed, and everyone waits for that moment when we all learn what the future holds. Do you remember where you were around, say, 11 p.m. Eastern on election night in 2008?
11 p.m. on the East Coast. We're back on the air, and we have news. An African-American has broken the barrier as old as the Republic.
Barack Obama is projected to be the next president of the United States.
This is your victory. Change has come to America.
That was a big night. That was the moment of a historic election call, and it came pretty early, just moments after the last polls closed out west, partly because Obama had such a clear margin of 7 points. But there's nothing automatic or legally necessary about declaring a winner that fast, which brings us to tonight's special report. What you need to know about this year's election and why no politician, not even a president, can override the vote counting. Now, modern technology makes many things faster. We know that. We're accustomed to learning who won on election night, but speed has no actual purpose here. As a matter of governing, the winners of federal elections have months before they take office. And this is more crucial this year because, one, a pandemic election is different. Two, President Trump may try to exploit delays, as he's already talked about. And three, totally apart from Trump, it's perfectly fine when there's time between when people vote, be it 3 weeks out or on November 3rd, and when we get the result. That was true during the recount in 2000. Then President Clinton put it simply.
The American people have now spoken, but it's going to take a little while to determine exactly what they said.
If this year's race is close, it's plausible that we will not know who the new president will be on the night of, or the next day, or even longer. And that's okay. So let's dig into why. Well, the first reason is the most obvious this year, the coronavirus. Even as we see long lines at the early voting locations, even this week, many states are expanding how people can vote safely from home. And that's sparking a dramatic rise in people voting by mail. So a close race could require counting ballots for weeks and weeks. Now, why is that? I mean, just as a basic matter of logic, you might think getting ballots in early is like getting a head start on your homework. Maybe the states could count it up early and be even more ready. Well, like every other legal issue in our Federalist Constitution, it depends on the state. Most states allow early ballot processing for that head start. So you have even battleground states like Nevada, Georgia, and Minnesota, which allow mail-in ballots to be processed as soon as they're received. In some states, that means today. But others have laws that ban that kind of early counting. And there are reasons for that. It can combat potential leaks. So officials can only start counting on the formal election day when we watch all those calls come in. Now, if you plan to watch as these returns come in this year, this is relevant to your night, to your November political health. The states with those laws will take longer to count, and they include key states that mattered in 2016 to Trump, like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan, where officials are already preparing voters for the wait.
We should be prepared for this to be closer to an election week as opposed to an election day.
We are not going to have artificial deadlines set by, people with political agendas.
We are not going to have the full results and accounting of all of our ballots on election night.
Wow. So you heard it right there. Michigan's top vote counter is already saying they will not have results on election night. And to think of this as election week or more. The governor flat out calling election day an artificial deadline. And separate from no matter who wins, that's right. Election day is not necessarily a time to demand results. It's just the time to start tallying them. If the election does hinge on a few swing states, which we know may not have the results on election night, then you would have a longer race. Now, there are ways election night could wrap up, just like I showed you with Obama relatively quickly. If Biden, for example, won Minnesota, New Hampshire, and won Florida on election night, then there's a chance he could actually have the required electoral votes to be declared the winner constitutionally. And it wouldn't matter if there were delays in some of those states I just showed you, like Michigan or Wisconsin. Now, totally apart from this pandemic and this president, There's another way that things can take time. And that's when a winner emerges, but it's not final. So you have the apparent winner, but the race is close enough to support legitimate legal appeals. Now, this is important. I say legitimate because if someone just loses badly and files appeals, judges, they tend to toss those cases real quick. But if it's actually close and there are valid recounts, well, court battles take time, like in 2000.
This being billed as the polls close before the election as the closest election in a generation.
Somewhat unbelievably, here we are now 3 nights after election night, and there still is no president-elect, not even close.
The Florida Supreme Court is still deliberating tonight, long after its normal 5 p.m. deadline.
Both sides are studying what happens if this race isn't settled by January 5th.
The justices working for a second night on their historic decision, while the candidates, their lawyers, and everyone else wonders the same thing. What's taking so long?
Well, the battle was taking so long because the legal system allows it. Each side could have different political motivations. Remember, neither party has a position on timing or recounts. In these races, both parties will push for what helps them win. In 2000, Republicans were arguing, well, Bush had already won before he legally had. Democrats were arguing, look, nothing's final until there's a full and fair count and it's complete.
Governor Bush won each and every time. Apparently, the Gore camp is not satisfied with that, and they're going to keep on trying to go as long as they can until they get a result they like.
The legitimacy of any president that's elected is going to be impaired unless the American people understand that there has been a full and fair count of all the votes.
George Bush is president-elect. Now, if we continue just to count until Gore wins, that will take weeks and weeks, and there'll be endless litigation.
The American people have now spoken, but it's going to take a little while to determine exactly what they said.
That was right. It took a while. The election was not resolved until over a month after Election Day when the Supreme Court ruled to end certain counting in Florida. Other races, though, they've taken even longer than that. Take 1876, Hayes versus Tilden. It wasn't decided until the following year. And nonpartisan experts note that when it takes extra time, that's an indicator election officials are working through safeguards that prevent frauds or errors. So if you find someone rushing the process, say potentially Donald Trump, they're not combating fraud, according to the experts. Now, some are worried about the president's rhetoric. This process and this timing is not his call. And he's not the first candidate to try to muddy these waters. Even in the most recent elections in 2018, Florida was, again, so close that a recount was automatically triggered under law. Republican Rick Scott falsely argued that a careful recount was some kind of Democratic plot.
I will not sit idly by while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the great people of Florida.
So Scott made noise, but again, just like Trump, it wasn't his call. The counting continued, and guess what? He won. The point here is not what's good for one party or the other, but the law governs. The law provides time to count, more time to count if there is a recount under state law. And in some places, it is true that as things come in, a later count can tilt a certain way for demographic reasons. Slower counting in dense cities, for example, where more Democratic voters tend to be. Or it can go the other way if mail votes are counted first in a state and then in-person votes then lean more Republican, which is entirely possible with Trump saying people should only vote in person. Now, we just showed you Florida last cycle. The Republican had the lead before and after the recount. That's typical. When a race is super duper close and there are errors, a recount, though, can still shift who leads. That's exactly what happened in Al Franken's 2008 race. He was barely behind in those initial results. He took the lead only later when all votes were carefully tabulated in that recount, which is for accuracy. Now, the Republican appealed, which is his legal right, all the way to the Supreme Court of that state. Now, that added time. The whole thing ended up taking 8 months, but the court backed Al Franken in the final tally, and that Republican conceded.
I conducted the legal challenge I wanted. I have always believed you do the best you can and you leave the results up to a higher authority. I'm at peace with that.
That is what the rule of law sounds like. Fight hard, sure, to the end, but respect the higher authority of law over one's personal politics. That applies to candidates and citizens, by the way. Now, how do all these facts and historical lessons apply in these 19 days ahead of us? Well, this is important. Let me try to walk us through it. First, this is up to the referees, not the players. So we should all look to the state officials and the courts to make tough calls, not the candidates on the field. Second, we have to get it through our heads. There is no such thing as election night anymore. This could take time, and we all need to be ready, from voters and the political class to, yes, the media, which has made mistakes by trying to get ahead of the ballots, not only in the past, not only infamously in 2016, but again, just in these last midterms where people on TV got things wrong by trying to make predictions too early when the ballots weren't all in about an election too soon.
It is entirely possible that the Democrats will regain control of the House today. But I have to say, when you look at what's going on here tonight, this is not a blue wave.
I see the chances of a wave kind of dissipating every time I see something on the board.
Pickups of 40 and beyond would amount to a much more significant size majority. And at the moment, Democrats do not believe that it'll be that big of a majority.
Wrong. Each of those claims were wrong. Some on our air, some on other air. All wrong. Democrats did go on to gain 40 seats in a historic blue wave. Some call it a tsunami. Now, the point here is not that those pundits were too overconfident. They were just too early trying to analyze and report on races as if they were finished when the counting was still going. Not just that night or that week, but we looked this up. All the way until December 6th. That's when the last outstanding House race in California was called. And you can't measure the wave or how many seats were won in the House until all the seats have been resolved. Now, this year, the media and political class, we all have to work on this. We have to avoid chasing results too early. To paraphrase ASAP Ferg, chasing, all this ballot chasing. I'm like a bad doctor. I ain't got no patience. This year, we all have to have a little more patience than a bad doctor. And shout out to Ferg for the dad joke raps. Now, if you take it all together, this could be one of the more important things in this year's election. You know, at this week's Supreme Court nomination hearings, there was much talk about tradition and originalism. Well, America's original tradition does not provide for one election day. For many decades, states held different election days over a longer period. And the Constitution, as we just walked through, provides weeks to tally and certify votes. Now, many things are different in 2020, but not this. And while people like fast results, we like instant information, there's actually a deeper point here. A healthy democracy honors fair rules for all consistently, even as the world evolves around us. The ground rules are the same, even as society shifts. You know, I could quote a founding father for that idea, but let's reach for a more contemporary elder, the great Morgan Freeman, who just dropped some of this very wisdom on the new project, Savage Mode 2.
Are things better or worse the second time around? Can we really do anything more than once?
Yeah, stop playing. We can't literally do anything more than once because we are not the same when we do it that second time. Deep. So America's about to do this same thing again, another election, even as we are different. We're changed by the pandemic. We're changed by 4 years of Trump. Will things be better or worse this time? We don't know yet. The answer is up to the voters, and we'll be listening for as long as it takes to hear all of them. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.